Is it recording?
Yes.
All right, here we are on The Blind Man in Black. And I'm here with director, musician, founder, and president of Actionplay, Aaron Feinstein. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, dude. I feel like we haven't talked in a very long time, and it's
I know
a
it's,
pleasure.
yeah, and I apologize. That was a very stiff opening, very awkward. That's all right. That's just kind of the day it is. It's one of those. I don't know how to exist anymore. I really don't. How are you holding together through this? Wait, let me start by saying this. The How we met is we were in UCLA School of Theater, Film, and Television in the theater directing program, and we were two of three, right?
We were two of three. It was you, myself, and good old Tom Burmeister.
I
So
haven't spoken with him since I graduated. Have you had a conversation with?
I feel like I talked to him like probably after graduation a couple times. He was doing some theater stuff in LA, so I know we spoke, but I really no, not much. We haven't really followed up, and I mean, I kind of am aware. I was aware of what he was up to, but I would love to touch base with that dude. He's a cool cat too.
I
You know,
remember. I think he was working. What is that theater in LA downtown? I'm
he was at the
blanking.
Kirk Douglas for a while, I believe. Yeah,
Yeah.
he was doing something like I want to say he was like the like I feel like he did like cool stuff in the like he did all the audience related things like I want to say like what's the right word, but like events that were happening in and around. I feel like
Okay.
that's what he was doing. I may be totally making that up. Tom, if you're watching this, I apologize for describing your career that I know nothing about. You probably none of those things, but I feel like I paid attention a little, enough.
Right. Right. Well, Tom, we miss you. And so, how are you holding together through the pandemic? And what have you been up to?
The pandemic has been, it's been incredibly strange. I feel like I was very fortunate that I was fortunate in a lot of ways during the pandemic. I started a new position as the director of people, arts, and culture at Watermark, which is a upscale senior living community. And I started that in like February, and we were in this like little leasing office, and and then about a month into the gig, it was suddenly stay at home. So I was very fortunate that I took like a really nice job because it kept me employed throughout the whole time. I've always had Actionplay going, but Actionplay, when you're running the thing, we had to figure out how to, you know, d- you know, keep running our programs and stuff, and which we did, and we did it very successfully. But it was a whole nother, I guess to put it bluntly, I think that was it. It was just like adapting to this very strange situation that was like confusing. I definitely have gone through periods where I felt very lonely. But I also have had kind of great moments of levity and joy too. So, it's been a mix of all sorts of things. It's been the best of times and the worst of times. No, that's fucking stupid. It's been what it is.
Well, let's hear a little bit about the joy.
The levity and the joy was I hadn't ridden a bike in probably 5 years. I had a couple bike accidents. I had two bike accidents, and they happened sequentially. So it took a while. I broke my wrist, and then I broke my scapula, but they were like back to back. So I
Oh,
was
I'm
just
so
kind of out, and
sorry.
then I was just kind of like, I'm not doing this, like for a while. And I hadn't ridden for like a while, and then I during the stay at home, I started biking again. I didn't want to take the train, and I was really wanted to start biking, and I really missed it in a sense, and I had the time to kind of like get back into it. So I started biking, and that became like a really lovely thing. And it was something I did all summer, and I would ride to the beach, at beautiful Fort Tilden Beach, which is a great ride for me. And I rode every weekend in the summer pretty much. And became like a total beach bum for my weekend life was like full on beach bum. And it was, I loved it because I always loved going to the beach, and I probably went to the beach. It's probably the most I ever got to go in my life was this summer, which was really, really fun. Um, I mean, starting the new job has been great in the sense of now that we have residents in the building. So if we're talking about now, it's been great. I love our members. They're lovely people.
So,
Actionplay was a bright spot too. Our classes on Zoom every Sunday, our Ames program, which is our longest running program, which is a devised musical theater program. I mean, it was amazing to see how people took to it, and it just became a bright spot in my life like it always was. But yeah, so a lot of good things.
wonderful. Wow, did you ride an e-bike or was it a regular bike?
I have a single speed, like a road bike. So it's basically like a 10 speed with like one gear. So it's nice for New York City, which is pretty flat. It's a great way to get around. But I had a vintage 10 speed, and I actually sold it to my good friend very recently. And that's kind of what I was riding in the summer. It's kind of like I switched from like an old vintage car to like a hot new Toyota Corolla or something.
Did it have like the vintage one have a curved handles? Is that
No, but it had, the nicest thing about this bike was it has like it has like this beautiful cushy, like old school spring leather seat. And
Mhm.
it's like so swag, and like it's really nice. And the gears are they're really nice gears, and they're kind of up top. It's a cool bike. It just wasn't like anything vintage. It kind of has its issues too.
Right,
It had
right.
plenty of issues.
Like me, like I have my vintage issues.
I think I do too.
So, how did everything begin? I know it started in Porn Valley, San Fernando Valley, right?
You're going right to the porn. Uh, what do you mean? Us? What
Well,
do
no, I meant your life.
you-
Well, I mean, you knew I was in porn, right?
Yes, no, that's why I was like, you're just like going right there.
Well,
Um,
we can talk about that, but I feel like we have not spoken since UCLA, really.
no, I mean, where I grew up, you're talking about where I grew up? I grew
Yeah.
up in the Valley. You came to my house that one time, remember? We did the maids at my house.
Yes, and
Yeah.
I feel like I gotta admit something. You had some fur coats, and I remember they got in my car for some reason. I don't know why, and they stayed there for a long time. And then my girlfriend at the time, we were camping and we didn't have some we were trying to cover up and got really cold and we used those fur coats.
Oh,
And I think they kind of got wet.
oh my God. Well, I'm not going to make you feel guilty about it now, but
Okay.
those coats actually do have some history to them.
Ah,
But
shit.
but let's erase that from time in case my mom watches this and gets really sad.
But I think they were fine. We just used them for warmth.
I mean, listen, I have pictures of me in high school where, I mean, those coats definitely made plenty of like theatrical appearances in my life. Yeah, I mean, it's a rabbit skin coat.
Mm.
One of them belonged to my grandmother. One of them, I think the big rabbit skin coat was her coat. And anyway, I use them all the time for like I have pictures of me like smoking cigars in them and just, being a goofy teenager and stuff.
Oh, well, I apologize. I hope they're still in okay condition.
Listen, it's all water under the bridge now. I think my mom just thought she probably thinks I lost it. Well, she's right. I did lose it.
No,
Through
I mean,
you.
I'm pretty sure I gave them back. I know
Oh, you
that.
did? Okay. Then maybe I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, they didn't. What I'm just saying, I'm apologizing that I used them for warmth. That's what I'm apologizing for.
You didn't use them for fashion.
No, no. Although I should have at the time, but anyway, so Porn Valley, you were born, yeah, and I do remember your home. And so what was it like growing up? What happened? What formed you? What
Um,
created your worldview?
I mean, that's a fun question. I mean, definitely, I grew up. Probably my strongest memories of being a kid were growing up in Northridge with my family, and I had a very, very close childhood friend who was kind of like a tomboy, and we kind of ran the neighborhood. And I just remember, playing, and my mom it was kind of like, I want to say, very like 1950s-y kind of childhood, where I had to be home before like it was dark,
Mm,
basically. But I had a really close friend that we just kind of played make believe, and ran around the neighborhood and swam and did all sorts of fun things. And it's a really I love I have such like strong feelings and memories about, just it was like such a special way to grow up, just to have like a strong companion when I was younger. um and and then we moved, and I went to a different school, and that's when I started to really struggle. I was bullied a lot. I really didn't fit in with this new group of kids that I was with, and I was like this magnet school. um, and when I was at the school, I think it was like one of those sorts of schools where they because they magnet schools are like where you test into it, so you have to be smart, or you have to test into it or whatever. And I think because they assumed that you're smart, that you like want to do school, and so they didn't have a lot of structure, and I certainly did not want to do school. I
mm.
wanted to, hang with my friends and play, and like just, be a kid. And I was a really hyperactive kid and had a lot of energy. So, I found that experience really dreadful. And, was really bullied a lot, and it really sucked. And I really didn't like it. And I have a lot of kind of darker memories from that time. So I don't know, that's some of it.
I mean, was it like the Karate Kid experience, like in Reseda? Like, did you were you confronted by Cobra Kai members?
I know, but I was, there was this one kid who really started to have it out for me, and he really saw I was a target. And then it's over. It's just like he become a target. And
Yeah.
um I had lots of fantasies about just putting this dude in the ground. I really hated that somebody would take my power like that. I remember being very angry about it
Mm.
as a kid at that time. But on the flip side of it, I had a really lovely family, and I have a really lovely family. And you
Before
know,
we get in your family,
yeah,
what about your friend that was a tomboy? I'm assuming it's a her, right?
yeah. She. I mean,
Are you
the
still in
best story
contact with
about
her?
her is just like how we met. Was I remember we were across the street at my neighbor's house, and we were swimming in their pool, and all these guys just were like ganging up on her and making fun of her because she looked like a boy. And they kept
Mm,
saying, "You look like a boy." And she kept saying, "I'm not a fucking boy. I'm not a boy."
mm.
She probably didn't use the F word, but she said, "I'm not a boy." And she was getting really mad. And they were like relentless. They just kept coming at her. And I just my scrawny little self stood up for her. And I said, I just said, "This is not cool." And I remember like just like really like fighting back and like screaming at these guys, and just being like really, and they were kids my age, but just being like really serious about it, and
So you,
realizing I didn't have to like pull a punch or anything, just by like being like, "No, like, why are you doing, like, you guys are just, you guys are just being total jerks. Like, just stop. You're making this woman cry, this girl cry. Why are you doing that? She's
mm,
cool. Like, we've been hanging out with her for like the past hour, and you just decided to start busting her chops. And look, you're affecting her, whatever it was." And then we became like best friends.
right.
Yeah, it was like one of those things where, and that's really how it went down. It really was like that. Yeah, I mean, I basically just, and because I thought she was cool. That's all. That's no. I wasn't. I just didn't join the pack. You know, I was
Yeah.
just like, come on, this is like. Have you not recognized that this is like the coolest person? Are you missing the cool factor here? Like you're spoiling this. Like
Yeah.
and yeah, and then we became really great friends.
Now, are you still friends with her?
No, I mean, we're like Facebook friends. I mean, I'm aware that she has like a cool life and a cool partner, and I think it looks like she's doing really good in the world. But no, we're not friends. I mean, I think I reached out at one point and said something to the effect of like, I really like my childhood or something like that, which is probably a really weird message to get. But but no, I mean, but I do remember though that when I moved, it had a huge impact on me. It was like that because I really couldn't see my closest friend every day, and it had a massive impact on me.
Now, you moved from one part of the valley to the other, I'm assuming?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's still a move, and you go to different schools and you see different people, and it's a move's a move. I mean,
Yeah.
and they can be really. I think I was a really sensitive kid, and I think stuff like that is way more traumatizing to kids than any people really think. They don't. I've seen kids go through stuff like that all the time, and people will ask because I did a lot of work in like early childhood and stuff like that too, and anyway, long story short, when the kid starts acting up and the parents are like, what's going on? It's like, what do you think's going on? Like you just like uprooted your reality, this kid's reality. Come on.
Well, the reason I mentioned it is because it felt like I felt a sense of, really appreciation for her. And
Oh,
when you were
well,
talking about it.
I did. It was a magical childhood in
Yeah.
my eyes in that regard.
Right. I could sense that. Before we talk about your family, I fucking forgot to ask if I was centered. Am I centered in the
You're
screen?
looking, let me just say, you look really good,
Well, thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. I'm probably I eat a little better than I did when I was at UCLA. Yeah, I did not eat well. Deep dish pizzas all the time.
I don't know.
I
I probably ate garbage too.
Yeah.
I don't know
So
if I eat that much better though.
and I was smoking a lot. We were both smoking a lot
Oh
then.
yeah, we smoked. Yeah, I smoked a bit.
Remember
I
the
didn't smoke a
benches in front
lot.
of
Yeah.
the theater school?
I
That
wasn't
was the
like a
place.
big smoker, but I did smoke. You smoked. You definitely, but I did. I did not smoke. I just wasn't. I always felt like I dabbled.
Right.
I never really got the hook really deep, but I certainly did.
Well, yeah, I was smoking to basically deal with anxiety, which was constant. So,
Yeah.
um,
I found that
but
cigarettes gave me anxiety, and sometimes
really,
or it kind of gave me a rush, and I kind of liked that
right.
sometimes. And sometimes I didn't. And I was always really kind of in tune with my body in a
Mhm.
sense in that regard. And cigarettes a lot of times just made me feel really fucking bad. you know?
Yeah, I remember walking from the Playboy Mansion. We could
Oh
park
yeah,
over
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I remember I was just sweating and I was like, this is not right. I should not be
Yeah.
sweating like this.
Yeah.
I was like, this is because of the cigarettes. I know it. But I couldn't stop. And the other thing is, but we can talk about this when we get to UCLA, but let's get to your family. I want to hear about how did that, what was that about?
Family, mom, dad, mom's a teacher. My dad's a podiatrist. My sister is now an educational therapist. I think we both, my sister and I, kind of somehow followed along in the, I want to say, educational league kind of field in some
Mhm.
sense, or something like that, or service maybe. That's another way to look at it, because both my parents, I guess, were in service in a
Mhm.
sense. Yeah, I have my memories of my early memories of my childhood with my family were pretty pretty good. I mean, my dad worked a lot when I was younger.
Did you ever
So
ask him why the feet? Why the interest in the feet?
it it has come up before. And I think, yeah, and it's like, of course, like at some point you're like, you want to go like, is there something we need to talk about here,
Right. Yeah.
But no, I think, no, I think it's just like when you're a doctor or you want to go into the various paths, right? You can do like the 7 years of medical school, or there's like shorter paths that get you an equally cool degree that you can practice medicine, and you don't and you can prescribe medicine and do all the things, but you don't have to do as you maybe get a couple years less schooling. I think.
I see.
I think it's something like that, but I think that's one of the reasons. I think it was like I think a lot of doctors that when they specialize, it's like for very practical reasons. It's not like, and sometimes not. We have a good friend. I don't know if you know her, Sarah.
Last
Uh,
name?
Sarah Horvath, and she's a baby doctor, and like she was an actress at UCLA, and I think for her it was a passion, But
Yeah.
most physicians I've met in my life, no, I wouldn't say passion. I think it's they think very practically, typically, about their educational path and all of that sort of stuff. Unlike us theater majors, we don't think practically. No,
Yeah.
no.
So did he ever see that episode of Seinfeld about podiatrist?
He probably has not, but
Okay.
I don't know. I don't
Okay.
know. I don't know if I've seen it. I'm not the biggest Seinfeld fan. I was telling somebody else that the other day.
Really?
What?
What didn't
Did
you
you say
like about it?
why?
Yeah.
No, it just never, I mean, like, I like it all right. It just never was like, I never thought it was like the greatest thing ever,
Right. Right.
I thought like there's other comedies I like a lot more. So I watched it and I thought it was funny. I think some of the writing's really good, but,
Were you more of a
it's a
Friends?
sitcom. I don't know. What?
Did you like Friends better?
Well, that's an interesting question. I would probably say yes, actually.
See, my wife likes Friends.
Yeah.
I think more than
I don't love, Friends is fine. I don't have a great love of either of them, but I
Right.
definitely would say I like Friends better. Yeah, 100%. I'm
Okay.
going to say 100% on that one. No.
Okay. So how did you get into theater? How did that develop? That love?
I was, when I was younger, there was
Any trauma?
No, it
Okay.
wasn't trauma. It was actually very joyous, to tell you the truth. So in Northridge, there's Cal State University Northridge, and they had a very well-known kids theater program called Teenage Drama Workshop.
Okay.
Well, actually, there is trauma. There's actually quite a bit of trauma in the story, but that comes a little later. But I'll tell it. I'll tell it because it's actually a very important part of my story.
Okay.
But basically, I absolutely loved going to these shows when I was a kid and watching the teenagers perform musicals and all these. So I loved it. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And
wait, but how are you exposed to it though? How did you originally
learn? We would go
learn?
in the summer. It was just like kids it was like going to see entertainment. We would go see their productions in the summer. As kids,
mean your
not
parents?
in the program. Yeah. My parents would take us. Yeah. And they loved them too. And we went every single summer. And I was the kid who had the program out, getting the autographs. I mean, they did autographs after so it was just like really meaningful to interact with these, the bigger than life sort of thing. I thought it was the greatest thing ever. And, a lot of my friends did too. So here's where the trauma comes in.
Okay.
Everybody goes, and a lot of people who know me think that this is why I went into theater. 100%. They'll say, hands down, this is why. So I was the kid who was like, the outgoing kind of kid. And I auditioned for 2 years of the program when I was 13, and I never got cast in a show. Never got cast. And I was the kid who loved it the most. Didn't get cast in anything. And all my friends that I grew up with did. Every single one of them. So it was absolutely heartbreaking for me. It was probably the first time I ever dealt with something that I would even remotely call heartbreak. But it was heartbreak. That's how.
How many years were you not cast?
It was either 2 or it was definitely 2 years for sure. It could have been 3, but definitively 2.
Hmm.
But I never got cast. I never, in the years I was in it, I didn't get cast in a show.
What the fuck was that about?
I think, my take on it was I was kind of an awkward kid, and maybe that didn't play, in I think maybe what comes across as a good energy now to people probably as a kid maybe came across as a bad energy. I don't know. I mean, I honestly to this day, and it was so bad that I remember I taught, I had my parents write. No, I tried to get in any way I could, because it was like, this was the thing I wanted from the time I was like a little kid,
Hmm.
and oh man, it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreak. That's what it was.
But what made
Like
you keep
crying,
going?
devastated, the whole thing. Like the whole, like, couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, the whole thing, you know?
That's horrible.
It was horrible. It was traumatic. Yes. I'm like, what am I saying? No trauma, tons of trauma, actually. Like, yeah, all trauma. And then, but okay, but the story gets better,
Okay.
ultimately, but it has nothing to do with that.
But I
Um,
mean, what kept you going? Like, I mean, a lot of people would have said, fuck this. I'm not going to do this.
I always liked, I always liked entertaining people, and I liked being the center of attention when I was younger. And I think I knew that I could do that, and I could hold an audience, and I had different experiences where I saw that in myself.
Hmm.
So when I was a teenager, I started doing the drama club thing. And, I was an awkward kid, and I had learning disabilities, and I was bullied. And I had a lot of things kind of like in my, I want to say, that were, drew me to the drama kids, but also was like, this is like a death sentence for me. I also wanted to be accepted by other kids too.
Yeah.
And, I think when I was in junior high school, and I didn't know that it was going to be so, I don't know if I knew. I don't know what I knew, but I knew very quickly soon after that, you're not climbing the rungs to social hierarchy by being in the drama club. But I also knew that those were my people, and that was where I had fun, and that was who I wanted to really actually be around. And I think in high school that started to level out. And some of the kids in the theater, we did a show called, I'm like saying, we did a show called, the show. We did a chorus line when I was in my freshman year of high school, and the theater teacher, who was this really fucked up dude, and like an alcoholic, and just so messed up, and had all sorts of problems. And there's a lot of story there too, but
A lot of
he never did
regret, I'm
anything
sure.
shitty, really shitty to me, but to a lot of the women that I grew up with, he was like a total, creepo.
Uh,
But he had a really strong, like, he instilled in us like a really strong work ethic, and did these really big shows. But in this particular show, he recruited high school football players, cheerleaders, like the most popular kids in the school. So
to get an
suddenly I
audience.
came into a theater program where I had a role in the play, and I was amongst truly the cool kids. So it was
Hmm.
like a very different experience. And I
So
think
you skyrocket in your social hierarchy.
I did. And then I stuck with it. And then, I got a lot of lead parts and stuff like that. And I was the lead in my senior musical, and all of that. We did How to Succeed, and I played Finch. And, I had the best part I think the best part in Midsummer Night's Dream as Bottom the Weaver, where you get to crack all the jokes and do all the
Mm.
fun stuff. And, I had a lot of good parts, and was getting, and started to like learn acting and take it seriously, and realize I was pretty good at it when I actually put my mind to it and stuff. And so it was a very big change, and then because of that, I started to audition for conservatory programs and whatever, and I did pretty well, and I got into UCLA as an undergrad too. So I think you know that, right? I went to UCLA both undergrad
Yes,
and grad. Yeah.
I remember that very well. And Yeah, because you already had a relationship kind of with Michael McLean, right?
I had a
Not like
relationship.
a romantic, but I mean,
I had
just
a
just a working relationship as
I
well.
had a I had a deep romantic relationship with UCLA. Let's put it that way. And like I knew everybody. I knew everybody. I knew a lot of the younger classmates too. So I partied like a, well, that's a whole funny story with our I don't know. I want to go into that one.
What's that? No, no, no. What?
Well, do you, this is like just open Pandora's box on that one.
Okay.
Well, no, that is a Pandora's box a little
Well,
bit.
let me say this. I didn't mention this before, but this podcast is my Gandhian experiment in truth. So if there's anything you want to ask me or whatever, I'm gonna be truthful about it. So
Well, it speaks to a classmate. Maybe I won't name the classmate, and that
okay.
maybe that somehow absolves me. But I remember we had a classmate that dated a very young person, and when we were in grad school, who was much younger than them. Do you
Okay.
remember this?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So I guess my point was that when I had friends, I was partying with the undergrad. I was 20. You were young too, right? You were coming right out of.
Yeah. Yeah. We
It was
were.
like
I
us,
believe
and
we're the
then
same age. I'm
yeah.
42.
Okay.
Or excuse me, I'm 43.
Okay. I'm 41.
Okay.
So did you go right out? But you could. I mean, it could have been. Did you go?
Well,
You went right in.
the issue is I was held back in first grade,
Okay.
so I was a little older. So that's
Got it.
why. Yeah.
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 I mean, yeah, going right from undergrad into grad school, you know. So, I was friends with a lot of the undergrad, and which was really fun. But I was
Mm.
also in a really serious relationship. So I didn't, I was in a relationship with basically my high school sweetheart. So I didn't party probably as hard as I could have. I probably could have been a total mess.
Yeah.
But it was fun. I mean, it was fun to in the beginning, I remember thinking, this is really fun. I know people, I direct, this is cool. I have a status here. I can kind of do what I want to do. And I really enjoyed, having that kind of, I want to say, clout to be able to kind of do things I wanted to do. That was like a really nice, very ego, pumping moment of sorts. I don't know if you remember that, but that's how I feel about it. I feel like I
What
had
was your? Are you talking about your ego pumping moment?
yeah. I felt like I had a lot of ego going on when I was doing.
No, I didn't feel that. I
Oh,
felt,
interesting.
you know what I felt, to be honest, I felt, I think it's weird, such a weird thing that we say, to be honest, or say, I'm not going to lie to you, because it's really shows that our culture is just full of bullshit and lies,
Yeah,
because
it's
we
just
have
like
to say that, right?
everybody's just a bullshit peddler. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I'm not going to lie to you. Well, yeah, it's just everybody's fucking lying. But
Yeah.
anyway, what I'm trying to say is that what I remember is that what I felt was that you were very much respected by the professors there, and especially Michael and other professors as well, because I think they had seen your works, and so I think the transition, uh, I didn't feel like, I felt like you were confident and but relaxed about it. I didn't feel like you were,
I
full of
think that's
yourself.
probably true. I did feel that what I was doing fit what they were. I was coming out of what was happening there, and we were
Yeah.
making weird theater, and I was good at making weird theater, and so I was confident in a sense. I knew, I felt like I was pushed in. I like, I liked at that time. I don't know how I feel about it now so much. I think I feel quite differently about it now. But at the time, I liked that they were really encouraging artistry, and that artistry was, or attempting to encourage, the artistic process over, um, like what's popular. They weren't, and there were different people. Obviously, you could say Mel was pushing a lot times for more popular work, but Mel wasn't necessarily my biggest advocate. But
Mhm.
Michael and Jose, who I wanted to say, Michael McLean and Jose Luis Valenzuela, were more pushing an artistic, kind of bent on what we were doing, and I liked that.
Yeah.
I also felt that, academia colors that in a very strange way. Because now when I see young people and kind of what they're doing, I feel like, wow, we could have even had more freedom, if we got out of this like serious play business and, did a lot more things maybe with improvisation or had writers in the room or did things like that. Because that stuff I got into later. And I wish I did that more because I think, like honing your skills on the classics and whatever is cool,
Mhm.
but what's being made, and I did new plays and stuff too, but I think the one piece that I wish I did more of was develop like like company style working methods. And some people did. I think Tom did for sure.
Mhm.
But I didn't. I really stuck with like, you do a play, you
Mhm.
make plays. I think you did too, from what I remember.
I'm surprised that I even got into the program. But I think I might have been like the add-on because I think you and Tom were like their primaries. And then I was like, yeah, well, they were like, yeah, let's see how he does. And
Mhm.
I think it was because I came from Cal Arts and I had a strong acting background and but I did not have any real directing experience. I directed like maybe just a couple plays at that point,
Oh,
and
that's so interesting.
my I remember my interview was bad. Like I remember I was like trying to quote a book, and I chose the wrong author. I meant to say
That's
like
so
Peter Brook,
interesting.
and I ended up saying like Mel Brooks. I don't know what
Yeah, because
happened.
Tom had quite a bit of experience for
Yeah,
sure.
he's older than us. He's got to be what,
Oh
like
yeah. Oh yeah.
50 something.
He was in his 30s when we were in grad school. He was like 32, 33.
Yeah.
And I was 22. He was 10 years older
Yeah.
than me,
Yeah.
at least.
And he had a motorcycle. I remember that.
And he had a motorcycle. And he had a lot of directing experience too. I had a lot of directing experience too. I mean, for that age, I directed every year from the time I was a sophomore, junior. I did, and I probably did 2 plays a year. So I was directing a lot, and I really was honing my craft. Um, and I did feel like it was just an extension of what I was doing already. But that's interesting. I didn't know that. I didn't realize that you had not been directing.
Yeah, not really. I mean, I was surprised that when I think about it because I remember like I think the portfolio that I had like literally had one play and it with just photos of the one play.
That's so
Like,
interesting. That's so
yeah,
interesting.
it was funny. But that's something that I always felt like I felt like maybe it was imposter syndrome, but I felt like I was the add-on. Like you and Tom were the primaries, and I was like the let's see what he does kind of thing.
That's so interesting. I don't think I felt that way. You, I felt like you had an acting background and you were definitely an actor. I did think that.
Mhm.
And I felt that, but you seemed to kind of merge into it pretty quickly and were somebody who you took risks and you did weird stuff and and I thought that was like I remember um what was you worked with the
Metamorphosis.
the Kafka thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, I remember that sort of, and it was like super visual and super, I mean, I think you went there for sure.
the irony of the super visual. No, I'm totally non-visual. Um, yeah, that was that I had a lot of fun on that play. That was really a lot of fun. And um, by the way, I just had a realization. Are you talking about me that was dating somebody young?
No. I'm talking
Oh,
about.
somebody
I'm
else.
like, why
Mm.
did I go there? I don't know. I feel kind of embarrassed that I
No,
did.
it's
Uh,
okay, but then I thought, wait, was it me? Because
no.
I mean, it
It
was
was
5 years younger.
no, it
That
was
was
another
the
classmate, and it
oh,
was
okay.
somebody. Yeah, it was somebody much younger. And I remember. Anyway, point being, I'm gonna segue out of that. The point though, just saying that when I was in the weird thing about being in grad school and then
Mm.
suddenly hanging out with all these undergrads was like suddenly I felt like I was supposed to be like more mature or something, and I
Right.
wasn't. I was just a kid too, you
And
know.
it was,
So
and it was awkward though, because you had that power, because they
right,
all wanted to act, and
right,
so
right, right.
there was a power differential there for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Right,
And
exactly. And
plus
I
we were
think
all, I really did not like the TA aspect of having the grade. I was like, ah, God, I was just like, this
yeah.
is, I thought that really made me feel awkward.
Oh,
And,
that's interesting. I didn't mind it that much, but
right.
I did a lot of times think like I don't know. I remember feeling like that class, like when my particular, so I was in that class, I was a freshman at UCLA too. So I took Michael McLean's class, and
Mhm.
our class really, or a lot of us in that class really embraced the stuff that he was showing. And there are plenty who didn't, plenty who really didn't like it, but he had a strong set of us that liked the experimental theater stuff and wanted to watch Buteau and Pina Bausch and all
Mhm.
of that sort of stuff. But then I saw other classmates who just hated it throughout the
Mhm.
years. And we seemed to have classes that were, they weren't necessarily, there was always a very strong constituency of what the hell is this? I'm here to be an actor. I'm in LA. I want to be on TV. Like what are you showing me? Like what is this garbage? Why are people running around with their tongues out and doing like crazy shit, you
Right.
know, and anyway, you know.
No, but I feel like the one thing, because going from Cal Arts to UCLA, Cal Arts was focused more on avant-garde. That was the primary focus
Yeah.
at that time when I was there, and then coming to UCLA, it just seemed like especially the undergrad, everybody was beautiful. Like all of the actors and actresses, I guess are using this term actor now, but all of them were just beautiful. And I was like, I feel like to some degree, um, the admissions were thinking about the mainstream industry, about people getting work.
That's interesting.
Did
I
you feel like that, or at all,
I
or
didn't.
no?
If I did, I didn't pick up on that. Probably because that's where I mean. Well, you grew up. Do you grow up in LA? I can't even remember.
No, I mostly Northern California, and then I
All
end
right.
up going to upstate New York and moving back and forth a
You were
lot.
around. Yeah, you traveled a lot
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, LA is that, I mean, it definitely, because you got to imagine, even people who are in state, it's like you grow up around the film industry, even if you come from LA, and there were plenty of people in my class that did, and there were plenty who didn't. But you do have to think that a lot of people who have their eyes set on LA that's the culture they're chasing.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go to school in LA, honestly. I definitively wanted to go out of state. I had no desire to stay in LA. And then I
Hmm.
got into UCLA and I was like, well, this is the best school I got into. And I felt good when I was on the campus. I liked the little sculpture garden. I was like, I felt very safe there. So I said yes, but I had no desire to go to college in state. That was not something I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I think it maybe was a good thing. I don't know. I mean, I
Well,
had good experience.
I will tell you this. In because I think about this a lot, contrasting my Cal Arts versus UCLA experience, and I think about one of the things at Cal Arts was it was like it felt like family. We were super close, all of us, and I think part of it has to do with being in a very small acting class for 4 years together.
Mhm.
I think that's part of it. But what I loved about UCLA was I mean, we were exposed to so much world theater like all the time. You can go to
Yeah.
Royce or the Little Theater. A lot of wonderful things happen in the Little
Yeah.
Theater.
I liked that about UCLA too.
I mean, and we were right there. You could go right after class and go see Robert Wilson or
Yeah.
something, anything that was happening there. It was amazing.
Well, my undergrad experience though, we were like a little family. Like I was very close with my undergrad class. Like we're
Right.
still some of my best friends in the world are my
Jim
undergrad.
Merson.
Jim wasn't in that class, no,
Oh,
but
okay.
no, my friends Drew and Jake and Marielle Heller and and Matt Harris and just like I mean like the coolest, I mean like and Dario and I mean it just was like the I don't know, the coolest group of people. And I had such a sometimes, if anything, now we talk and it's just shocking how long ago that was. I think that's what, I think that's going to happen at different points in our lives. But that particular group, because I'm close with a lot of them still. And I feel like every time we get together, as we're talking right now, I feel like I'm going like, like I know you, like I don't,
Yeah.
it's like I don't feel like it's like you're not skipping a beat. And I feel that way with a lot of my undergrad. I mean, I just feel like it's like we're kind of the same bunch of goofballs, even though people have kids and people have. It's like I don't know. When we get together, it always feels like kind of like we're the same people in a weird way,
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. And we talk about the same funny ass stories that happened 20 plus years ago now, you
Yeah.
know. It's very strange, but anyway.
Speaking of strange, but beautiful and amazing, your play Ubu Roi, is that
Ubu,
right? That's
oh
the
yeah,
play
Ubu
that you
Roi.
direct.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That was a really amazing play. Can you talk about like what that's about? Because I mean, I remember it was visually stunning in a very small space, but I can't even remember the name of that theater. What was it
Oh,
called?
we call it had like a number,
Oh, it was a number. Okay.
1330. Yeah, 1330.
That's it. Holy
Yeah,
shit. Yeah.
yeah. Um, oh man, that was a blast. The coolest thing about that was I got to work with the undergrad class that was right below my class when I was an undergrad. So I knew all these folks and hung out with them a lot. So if anything, or at least some of the people that were in the show, and it did operate like it was a really nice ensemble, and I really remember giving everyone like a lot of space to create funny, weird shit. It was not always my style to do that. I didn't always just give people space. Like when I started directing, I didn't give people space at all, really. I just
Right.
came in and knocked out what I saw in my head, and it was very kind of clockwork, and I didn't really think to open it up in that way. Part of it was just insecurity, and part of it was probably just like that's what I thought a director did,
Mhm.
But that particular play, I just remember it was like clowning and pratfalls and coming up with like funny ways because I decided that I wasn't going to have there was going to be no set and no props, but there would be dirt. So everything had to be dirt, like everything, anything
Mm.
that happened had to be made out of dirt. It had to like, there was dirt on the stage and just everybody had to
Right.
just make it out of dirt. So
Right.
so there had to be a lot of creativity because every single thing was dirt, like everything. So
My Empire of Dirt. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I was totally Trent Reznorring that show. Yeah, and I remember that being cool. I remember thinking about I that it's a very like body kind of carnal piece. And I remember thinking like, let's make the music sound like the insides of like the intestines or something like that. So like the entire soundtrack was bass and drums, and it was just like, like it was
Can
all
you give
bass and
can you
drums.
give those that are listening and watching just a brief synopsis of kind of what
Oh,
it's about? Yeah.
Ubu is
Yeah.
about it's
It's
literally the
Alfred
story of
Jarry,
Donald
right?
Trump's rise to power. No, I mean it's just this fucking idiot king. I mean, like he just basically bumbles his way into power and is just ridiculous. He doesn't care, and he's just the ultimate buffoon basically, but like gross and disgusting and just like just just all over the place, and he still rises to power and like does horrible things, but also it's just purely just ridiculous and just kind of gross and demented how somebody who just it's like it's funny because it's about such I mean, I'm sure it has happened. Like Donald Trump is Ubu, in a sense. I mean, it's the ass kind of rising to power, and that's the story. And anyway, yeah, it was really fun to work on.
Do you feel like you were prophesizing at the time? Like, because you chose it. So was there something that drew you to it? Or did
I
you
think what
feel
drew
the
me to
orange
it,
presence coming?
um, I think I had a very, the kings and queens of the theater. I certainly thought like, oh, well, I probably felt like a little, I don't know what the right word is, like I was very, it was like, I was just very not interested in what was, doing anything elevated at that moment. And I really wanted to do something crass. I feel like I wanted to do something that was kind of had like a punk rock kind of energy to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I really felt that play just was like, so it was just, there's something so kind of, I don't know, cathartic. I don't know if that's the right word, but about watching just somebody bumble their way into power. I mean, there is something kind of very telling about it, but no, I don't think I had any sort of take on what the world was. I mean, I saw that as just like, that's how power happens like half the time. Like people just are bumbling their way through the universe. And this is a play that seems to like just go zoop, that's what happens. That's
Right.
how power works. Sometimes you just get it, and through a series of moves and maybe some subtle manipulations, like you're there. And if anything, I probably, if there was any personal side of it, it was probably me feeling like I was this young kid who was directing and had this power. And it was like, why do I get, I'm just an ass, like I'm just a, like why do, like, it goes back to I kind of felt like maybe I was making fun of myself in the process. Yeah,
Wow,
that's kind of what I remember.
that's intense.
Yeah, I don't know. It was fun. If anything, I remember it being a very fun play to work on.
It was. It was a fun play to watch. Everybody loved it. Everybody looked like they were enjoying what they were doing. I mean, it was amazing, and I was profoundly impressed by it. I really was, and I think
I
I
have
think
a hard
everybody else
time
was.
remembering. That's one I have a video of somewhere. I've never digitized it. I really actually would like to know what it looks like. I have memories of what I saw in my mind, but I don't really have concrete memories of that one. Where other plays I definitely do. But that one, it's like a wash. you
Hmm.
know I
What
feel like I played a couple of notes and I remember a couple of notes.
you should definitely digitize that before it gets degraded.
They're all in a box. I need to send them off. Yeah, I feel like that's a good birthday present to myself maybe this year, is to digitize all my old shows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because they won't last forever, those tapes. So
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
um the reason I asked about why you chose that play is because there was a personal thing for me when I chose Metamorphosis. I felt like Gregor Samsa, and that was my relationship with my own father.
Wow.
And so that was, I mean, it was interesting how it came about, but and I remember Michael McLean and I got into a really serious argument, and I don't really remember what it was about, but I remember that we had to have mediation. It was so bad.
Well, he was a really intense dude, you know.
Yeah,
Um, he could get really hot, you know. It's that Texas energy, He could get
yeah.
he could get really hot under the collar. I saw it happen a number of times. So passionate.
Was
So
that
I'm
ever
not I'm
directed
not
at you?
shocked. What?
Was that ever directed at you ever?
Oh yeah, one
Oh,
time, but I took it. It was a great lesson for me. I really kind of appreciated it on the long run.
hmm.
Yeah, I did a cherry orchard scene for a directing class, and what an idiotic move. I mean, this guy's like favorite play. He speaks Russian. Like,
Yeah.
why that? What? Oh, what? I'm trying to like impress the teacher. with that, that's a bad idea for your first scene out the gate. Bad, 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 bad idea. And so I did it, and I put it on stage, and it just wasn't happening at all. It just, and I watched it and I was like, fuck,
Mhm.
you know, and he just was like, he just was like so mad about it. He just was like, because it wasn't, I was just like, and he just laid into me. I think he like threw a notebook at me at some point, or he just
Oh
like, he
yeah,
just
he
got
did. I
really
remember
hot.
that.
Yeah.
I remember that he did.
Yeah. And anyway, it got really all I remember is that. And anyway, long story short, I was able to bring the scene back, and I felt like I had a mental enema or something because of the intensity of this man. And I really hemmed and hawed, and really went at myself and dissected my brain and just emotionally cried and did whatever I had to do, because I had a lovely relationship with this scene, because an Italian director who I worked with, Massimiliano Casati, he did this scene, and I loved his scene so
Mhm.
much. So I wanted to do something that was my own version, but had the same kind of impact that I remember when he did this scene. And anyway, I came back, and I learned a great lesson in directing. Chekhov's really fucking hard.
Yeah.
You don't get a lot of people don't talk to each other. It's like real life. There's a
Yeah.
lot of pontificating, and nobody's actually listening, and and
Yeah.
you're just, you have to it's like a very subtle weaving of it's like playing music, really. You have a note, and then you have to weave it to the next note. And I really remember it was a great learning experience to take that so seriously, and then achieve, really nail it. And I was really proud of the scene, because it was joyous and light, and yet it had a lot going on with it. And so, yeah, I mean, I must have listened, and I don't know. I mean, I
You turned it
felt like,
around though, obviously, right?
what?
You turned it around, like,
I turned it around. Yeah, I
yeah.
turned it around, but it was through emotional gutting
And
that
a
I
notebook
turned it around.
book being thrown at you.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have a strong, like, in my life, I feel like that's a very strong, I definitely feel like, um, with the strikes and gutters. Was that your phrase? Did you used to say that?
I did say it a lot. I said ups and
Yeah.
downs, strikes and gutters. It's from the Big Lebowski.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that in my life, I feel like I've had those, but I did eventually, a lot of times, turn it around in significant ways. Um, so I definitely have survived the various traumas, big or small, a lot of times, and came out okay. I have to remind myself of that as I go through various traumas in my life, because but talking about it makes me go, yeah. That felt like a minor trauma. It's a scene, but he was just irate. You had a mediation? I mean, I kind of remember a little bit. Like, I remember he was very mad about it, and he was going to fail everybody, or he's going to, he was
Well,
mad about
it was specifically about me. What happened, I don't really, what I feel like it was is it happened over the summer or something in between the first and second year. And I remember it had to do with my choice of the play. I think it ultimately had to do with metamorphosis, but I don't remember. I think I was trying to do something else, and then metamorphosis was a compromise. But whatever, I mean, I think part of it was me. I think I was being a little unreasonable, and
I had one of those too.
really,
With Dreamplay was a fucking disaster. That play was a mess. Why did I
Hmm.
do that play? You know what I did with that play?
What's
I
that?
did not like that class. Like, I mean, I liked a lot of individuals, but working with them together, I didn't like. I did this play that was, I think I was trying to convince myself that I could do it.
Yeah.
which is a bad reason to do anything.
Yeah.
And I think listen, dude, it was hard. It was hard on me. I just remember I would come home and I would pour these like huge gin and tonics that were like the full glass, and I would have two of them just because I was so upset every night. I just felt like for the first time I am not making any progress in a play that I'm working on. I never felt like I would hit a wall and I just kept hitting walls. I never felt like I broke through the wall. you know
What was, I feel like you somehow amalgamated Georgia O'Keeffe into it. Am I misremembering? Is that
Oh
like,
yeah, I used a lot of like art. Yeah, I used the lilies or something. Yeah, as an image. Yeah, and we had the mirrors. I don't know. That play was a fucking mess. It was a mess. I still feel like it was a mess. It was like of all the plays I directed in my life, that one was the one. Even professional work out of UCLA, that still was the one that was just like I felt like I was just fucking shoveling the whole fucking time. Just like no, there's no reprieve in this. It's just keep shoveling, just keep shoveling. You
but
know?
it wasn't your final production though.
No, no.
And if I remember, you did 12th Night, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you had a great actor playing Sir Toby Belch. I
Oh
remember
my
he was
God.
just, it was just amazing.
Dude, you were so okay. Well, that's a whole story in itself, right? Because so I cast somebody
Yeah.
and um and the guy was like he was like a Hollywoody guy. And I think he got like a big TV part.
Yeah.
And so I was really left in the lurch. I don't know. I think we talked about it or something. And somehow I presented it to you in a very serious way. I don't know how or why, but I did think you would be great just because of like who I knew you to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a funny role and it's body and it just you had all the pieces. And then you read it and I was like, yeah, you're if anything, you're probably gonna smoke the rest of this cast who are like undergrads who know fucking nothing. And that was kind of, you were so big. I remember just like everything was so big. But I also remember thinking like, but in a good way, but it also was kind of dangerous. You were kind of unstable with it too. Like you were like very intense about everything. And like, but I do remember the one moment, like of you pointing the gun at the audience and just like, and like people like really feeling like freaked out. And I remember thinking like, and why did I have guns in a Shakespeare play? I don't fucking know. I mean, like, my whole concept with that play was like, I wanted it to feel like Yiddish theater. I wanted to feel like kind of like I literally wanted to feel like you're opening the suitcase, throwing on the costumes. Here we go. Let's put on a play, like classic, and really get into that, like vibe of it, because it has that kind of like cheap thrills kind of quality of, and I don't know. But anyway, yeah, in the performance, come on, dude, you were amazing. You were like, what the fuck? You were so like intense and funny, and it was great.
Well, I appreciate it. I it's unstable. That makes sense. I'm like, yeah, that I was unstable.
Like you were not okay with yourself acting, and you had like lots of, I remember it being very like complicated in ways, but I think you delivered too ultimately.
Well, what happened is I stopped acting because I learned in my first year that I was losing my eyesight. And so I actually got into a Richard Foreman piece at I'm sorry, at Cal Arts.
Right. I remember.
And I've told the story many times. So, but basically I ended up, leaving that production and not explaining why, because I was embarrassed and I didn't want to share why I, was feeling uncomfortable. And, but I didn't really act, past, I mean, I had to in my fourth year CalArts, but that's why I went into directing, because I was like, I'm having issues working backstage and low lighting and running into things. And I'm like, if I can just stay in the audience and look at the full picture, I'll be okay. And that's why I got into directing. And so I hadn't really acted up until that point. But what really fucked me up was my thesis production at UCLA was a massive disaster. And it was John Genet's The Balcony. And I was so depressed about that, because my plan, I was happy with Metamorphosis. And then the next step is I was going to invite industry to watch it, to watch The Balcony, my thesis production. I didn't do it at all because I was so embarrassed by it. I was like, this is horrible. I can't, and what am I going to do after I graduate? I can't, invite anybody, and I don't have any other options to showcase anything. So I was coming off.
The funny thing is, I felt very similarly about mine. But I didn't even know that was the point. I didn't get it really.
Did I embarrass you?
No.
My performance?
No. I felt that the play was good, but I felt, well, here's the fun thing. For the play, my dad invited this guy who was like a big acting teacher, and he hated it.
Oh,
but
really?
Other people loved it. I kind of listen. I don't think it was like the best thing I did, but I thought it also had what I was going for at the time, which means something to me. Even if
hold on one second. I don't know if my bandwidth is low or your bandwidth, but I'm getting a little bit of distortion. I just kind of wanted to clear up.
Can you hear me better now?
No, it was internet distortion, like bandwidth issue. But anyway, go ahead. Just repeat the last thing you said.
I think for me, I guess I would say it wasn't my strongest artistic piece, but I was going for something very specific. It was a feeling sort of thing. I was kind of going for that like happy, sad thing, like the joy amidst the kind of pain, and that kind of like flipping them a lot, and really getting into that idea of I want to say like a burst of flowers on like a death scene, or something, something like that. And so I was really exploring the idea, and I feel like I achieved it, but I feel like my own artistry was not like the strongest shown of like what I could do as an artist, if that was the point. It wasn't flashy. It was like literally just the opposite. So I don't know, but I also, I was very not, I did not understand how to have a career. I was so not on my radar of like what to do in terms of a career in that regard. I just, I felt like no one told me what to do, and therefore I didn't know. I should have cared, but I really didn't. I just thought I would keep directing shows, That's kind of how I thought about it, which is really naive. Really naive, anyway.
Well, I want to go back just a little bit, because I need to, this is turning into a therapy session for me, by the way. I think I had a stroke. I got a little drool on my chin.
Nice.
I don't know what happened. Anyway, so, but yeah, this has turned into a therapy session for me, because I remember, and I don't know if you remember, and I feel bad about it, because there was a performance where okay, let me go back. A few months before this production of 12th Night, my girlfriend dumped me right before Valentine's Day, and we were supposed to go to Catalina Island together.
Oof.
And so I had already, it was Aaron, remember? And and I had already purchased the hotel room and the boat ride.
Oof.
And so I was like, I'm not going to throw this away. I'm going to go.
I kind of get it. I've kind of been there, done that, but yeah, I get it.
And so what I did was I went to Catalina by myself on Valentine's Day, And I remember it was so awkward because I was on the boat with couples and they're like, are you here by yourself? And I'm like, yeah, my girlfriend dumped me.
It's like a fucking John Hughes movie or something.
Exactly. It was so fucking depressing, like the whole weekend. But
That's a great movie concept. That's a funny, I mean, like for like a short or something. That's like a funny idea. But anyway, continue. Just like the fact that just, I'm sure, I feel like the idea has been done, but but like you're basically just torturing yourself. Like there's no other way around it.
I was, and I think I even called her at one point while I was there and was like just crying. And then I went to dinner by myself and went to the bar by myself. And I was really by myself. Like nobody talked to me because it was couples. They're just coming for the weekend. And so, but anyway, my point is,
You go to Catalina Island and go like fuck in the back of a Jeep. Like that's like what you do.
I didn't know that. That's.
I think
I didn't know.
you rent one of those Jeeps and you fuck in the back of it and
okay.
or on the beach or something. I don't know. That's
I guess I could have rented one and jerked off somewhere on the island.
Jerked off on the beach. Yep, that's it.
But
as humpback whales are descending gracefully.
Yeah, that would be an odd thing to jerk off to, humpback whales. But so the reason I'm mentioning this is so I was coming from that, and then a few months I had done, and then I think. Yeah, I did my thesis production and that was a disaster. And I don't know if you remember this. One of my actors got really violent during like a dress rehearsal and threw one of my actresses across the stage. And I was back, behind the little theater in that area.
No, I don't remember that.
And the actor, I was like, you cannot do that. We block things so people don't get hurt. You can't just improvise violence. You know what I mean? And he like started to get
a bell, but I don't remember it.
And he got defensive.
Offline, tell me the name, and then maybe it'll come back.
Yeah, and he got defensive, and I started yelling. I'm like, "You can't fucking do that! Is you're going to hurt somebody?" And then he started to get really aggressive, and he had military training, so I was a little bit like, "Fuck, I'm going to get really hurt."
I'm now on it. Yep.
Yeah, and then and it was the funniest thing. I hear this voice over by the vending machines in the darkness, and I see the glow of a cigarette. And I hear, please stop. And it was Jose Luis Valenzuela. And he like de-escalated it and it was fine. But the next thing that happened is I went to the benches and just sobbed because I was like, my girlfriend broke up with me. My thesis production was a fucking disaster. And I just gone through a shift in my vision loss. So that was happening. And then 12th night happened. So I'm going back to this because that girlfriend that I had showed up with her new boyfriend when sitting in the front row.
Oh my God.
Did I tell you this?
I don't know if you told me that. I don't know if I knew that.
Okay. The reason I'm apologizing is I went out of the blocking and there was a moment when there was a part where I'm directing anger and I don't remember what the lines are at all, but I remember instead of directing it to the actor, I went and directed it at her.
Oh, wow.
And looked directly at her because I was really upset that she was
okay. But this is the point. This is what I remember.
That I was unstable.
When I say unstable, I guess that's what I remember. I remember you made like very spontaneous, like I didn't know what I was going to get.
Right.
I was kind of a little excited by that because I really liked you in the role. And I liked the kind of, but it was also like very, it was like unsettling at times.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, because you were just like, you were very, well, it makes sense. I mean, you were like emotionally raw and you were, and you didn't really want to be an actor, like you weren't sure about it.
The thing was it's just the problem was I didn't know how to do it because I was coming from an ableist perspective. I was like, that was the whole thing is I thought, I can't do acting the way I want to do it. What am I going to just play blind characters but I mean, I should have, but the point is
I don't remember. I remember you telling me you had this condition, but I don't remember it being very central to any of our conversations. I really don't.
Well, it was because I didn't want to talk about it, but I'll tell you, you may remember this and it may you may have a little bit of memory of this in Mel Shapiro's class where we had to act.
Yeah.
we had to do monologues, and I did this kind of Spalding Gray, Gray's Anatomy type
Yes. Yep.
thing, and I talked about my eye condition.
I don't, it's funny. I remember that you had it. That's all about all I can say. I remember, but I
Yeah.
don't remember it coming up a lot. I remember, I mean, the thing I remember more is you changing your name. Like that's the thing I remember the most.
Do
Like
you
in
remember
terms of
why I changed it?
I don't. And I just remember it was like you came in, you changed your name, you had a green streak in your hair, and like suddenly it was like, what am I supposed to do here?
Yeah,
And I think I was like, I think we need to accept this, but I was very confused by the whole thing.
Well, what it was, there was two things. One is I wanted to escape myself. That was first, and I thought a name change would help. The other thing is there was another Brian in the class below us,
Right. Right.
and who is now running the entire school.
But I think it was that, but I think it was that you were so serious about it. And that's why I was confused. I think you were like very serious about it. And it
No,
was like
I'm
suddenly
like,
it was
no,
just
my
like
name
it
is
felt like,
Max.
but it just felt like some
What an
people,
asshole I was.
What?
I was an asshole, wasn't I?
No. I would no, meaning like if somebody transitions or something, it's like, it's very serious about, obviously they're changing their name. They're changing. It felt like that sort of level of impact. Like I am changing my name. I am changing my identity. That's how it
Right.
felt. It was not it didn't feel like, oh, I'm just changing my name because this Brian, it didn't feel like that at all. It felt very like strong, like I'm doing this, you're going to call me this now. And I was like, okay, cool. What's everything?
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't realize that I was intense about that. I
Oh yeah.
appreciate you telling me. That's
Oh
interesting
yeah.
insight.
And to this day, when I was wondering if you were Max or Brian, because I saw Brian, I was like, I don't know, maybe, because it was that intense. It was that intense.
Were you concerned about calling me Brian?
I think yeah, I mean, I think well, meaning like it something, I remember it had that much impact. Let's put it this way, where it was like, I knew you had this as this name. And then suddenly you made a very strong turn. And I felt like there was like an appearance. You just decided, it felt like you did, like something happened.
Oh yeah, something did happen. My OCD like just completely I I really had a massive OCD like change. I've been having OCD issues, but during that time I had a real severe OCD thing. And yeah, that was a fucking mess. Um, but yeah, I had a change, for sure, and I just didn't realize that it was that intense. I thought it was more matter of fact.
No, it was kind of to me, it felt intense.
Right.
I don't know if others would say that, but to me it
Yeah.
did for sure.
Right.
Um,
But yeah, so 12th Night was your thesis production.
yeah. No.
And I thought it went well. And so let's and
Gary Gardner, God bless his heart, loved it. So
did he?
I always put that with because Gary, I was not one of Gary's like, I was not in Camp Gary. I was a little too weird for Gary. I mean, Gary liked me a lot, but I wasn't, I wasn't one of his favorites in that regard. But he loved that play, and that always made me feel great because I got that he got that I understood the tone of that play.
Yeah.
And it's a hard piece to play. So whether I felt my artistry was as like cool as it could have been, like I felt like I played it like I showed my chops, like and I was happy that somebody recognized that.
Right.
Others recognize it too, but that's how I felt about it. I was like, oh, I'm a good director at this point. I have chops. That's how I felt.
Yeah, for those listening and watching, Gary Gardner was a professor at UCLA, and he did pass away a few years. It's been a while now,
Yeah,
but
he
was very well loved. He was mostly musical theater, but he had a really wonderful, like loving, inclusive energy.
Yeah, he's a very sweet-hearted man, and just always smiling and joyous, and he was, lovely.
So let's talk about your music. So where did that come from?
Music. I was you know, I always liked writing songs. When I started playing the guitar, I didn't. I started. You know, I obviously I learned some songs and things like that, but I really realized that my goal was not to be a tunesmith. I really, as much as I wanted to be that, when I wanted to go to the camp and, you know, impress all the girls with my, you know, ridiculous encyclopedia of songs. I just felt like every time I sat down, I didn't do that. I
Right.
just I just would write. And so
Mm.
I just was like, you know, at the beginning, it was kind of a burden. I was like, oh, I'm gonna start to learn this thing, and then I just want to make something. So I
Right.
always wrote, and that was kind of what I did. And it was a real place of solace for me. And it still is. I wish I wrote more. Um, you know, I feel like I go through different emotional things, and sometimes when I come out of them, I like to write, but when I'm in them, I have a hard time writing.
Mm.
So, you
Did you
know,
write a song about not being cast for 3 years?
no, I never wrote songs about like really specific. My songs, I always felt like my music kind of the stuff I love to write, it kind of like fell out of the sky. It really had to like clobber me in the head, and I had to be really compelled to write it.
Mm.
I mean, I have other stuff too where I sit down and I labor at something, but typically I started chasing the, you know, the flights of inspiration really.
Right.
Um, and so sometimes it wasn't like I had such an extreme output, but I also felt like, but when I got something and I captured it, I got the thing, which was
Mm.
always a really good feeling. So I loved that, and, you know, played in a bunch of different bands. Played in a bunch of different bands in New York. I was in a band called Opponents, like a synth kind of industrial, pretty dark band. Played in a band called Manson Family Picnic, a folk band. I put out stuff under my own name. I put out stuff under the name Gamma Haze. Um, Put out stuff. Did a lot of stuff with Jonathan Snipes, who's in clipping, and we worked together as musical collaborators through the years and doing things. So, you know, a lot of different friends and folks that I've worked with, and I still do it, and I love it. And if anything, I feel like I've fallen off it a little bit, um, but it'll come back. It'll come back, you know. But yeah.
That's great. That's great. How did it start though? Like, did you start playing guitar at young, or what? What
No, I was in I think I started when I was in like middle school, like 13, 14, you know.
did you
Took
have
maybe
formal lessons?
I took maybe one or two lessons, and then kind of, you know, beat my fingers into, you know, the point that they could do the things I wanted them to do. And
Hmm.
then I have one real strong memory of just like it felt like everything clicked. And then I suddenly was like, oh wow, I can play this thing. And then I started writing some stuff. And I remember going over to my neighbor's house who was having a party that, so I must have been older than 30. Maybe this was 15, 16, probably 15 years old. Yeah, around that age though. And there were girls at the party. And I just remember thinking like, I don't really know how to talk to girls, but I can do this thing now. And maybe they'll like this thing, because this thing's kind of cool. This is kind of unique. The other
Right.
people can't do this thing.
Right.
So I remember playing like original songs, and, you know, and like getting like like, and just kind of like having a moment where I was at this party, and like some people like tuning into what I was doing, and it just felt good. It was just like, oh, you're okay. I must be doing something right because somebody's noticing it. That's how it felt, you know.
Yeah. I
And it kind of
remember
gave me a little bit
Twilight
of
Eyes.
confidence. What?
I remember Twilight Eyes.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, you saw. Oh, so I was still. Oh, that's fucking crazy. I always forget about that. That when we met. Well, it's crazy because I don't associate that band with grad school, but that was the end of that band because I was in that band all through. So I was in I was in a college band called the Candyland, and I still played. That's so crazy. I don't associate the two, but yes, I was playing in
I
that
don't
band.
think I saw you play live. You gave me, actually, you came over, if I remember correctly, you came over to my shitty apartment on Pruce in LA by
Yeah.
Pico and Robertson.
We
And
drank straight gin out of cold glasses. It was nice. I remember that.
Yeah, that was my drink every night after I got home from rehearsal.
Yeah,
Was just gin right out of the bottle.
I love it. That's basically what I did too. Gin
and
and tonics though, and I did G and T's. Wait,
and
so
I
I came
rem
over to your house and what?
well
Did I tell you I
you
broke up
had
with the
it.
band or something?
No, you had that CD, and you're like, we were talking about your music, and you're like, you want to listen to it, and you, I think either you gave me your CD or because I had it and I played it. I remember playing it for my girlfriend Kara at the time,
Right. Yes.
yeah, I remember, and I thought it was
She was
good.
lovely. She was like where like from not Louisiana, from
She was from Kentucky.
Kentucky. Yeah, yeah. She was
Yeah,
cool. I remember she
yeah,
was
yeah. I have no idea what she's doing now. I know she was married, and then she was acting for a while, but I have not seen her, and I don't like. Yeah, I have no idea what's
yeah,
going on.
yeah. She's a very beautiful woman. I remember thinking she was really, really cute.
No,
Um so
I remember a lot of people saying that. Yeah, in my presence. Yeah. About specific aspects of her body. I was like, all right,
Oh wow.
yeah,
And that was definitely not me.
no, no, no. But actually, this is why I wanted to have this interview, is to talk to you about this.
I know it's like you get to all this and then it's like the shame. Like I bet there's shit like that out there in the world right now. Come on, people are so fucked up. There's all that sort of shit happening in the world where people just will be like, I'm sure like somebody brings somebody on to just be like, and you told me at this, like I'm sure there's got to be, you
That would
know.
be such a funny premise for like a TV show. Somebody that has like a podcast, and their whole purpose is its disguise is to like confront people about issues like grievances,
Oh my god. Oof.
airing of grievances. But yeah, no, no. I mean, no. You were always very kind, and I always felt very. I really appreciated our conversations at UCLA because it was a difficult time, and I felt like we had a solidarity. And with Tom seemed, he was older, and we didn't connect as much, and he was very mysterious. He was, he had his lady, and plural,
Yes.
and he was just, he was very mysterious, like, and it was Burning Man and all that shit. And like, so I didn't, I mean, we talked and we, connected, but he was always like, I felt like he was always somewhere else. You know what I mean? Like there
Yeah.
was always something mysterious and other that he was doing. That I could not connect to because it was beyond my realm of understanding. You know what I
That's
mean?
that's a funny way of putting it. He definitely had a quality about him that was, but I had a lot of good conversations with Tom too. I mean, I felt like in one sense because he was older, he like there are times I think I wish I would have listened to him more because I actually think he had some interesting perspectives on things that were very different than the way I thought about the world.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, he had kind of but he also, you know, when I saw him in the rehearsal room and observed him, he was very dynamic in the rehearsal room. Like a really interesting, like a different side of him came out in direct when he directed stuff, and I thought that was also really cool.
Yeah.
He had a very dynamic kind of thing that came out. Yeah, he's an interesting guy, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he was mostly mysterious,
Yeah,
to me. Like,
it's just an interesting word. I'm thinking about that word choice to describe him, but that's your experience. I'm like, I think he was mysterious. I don't know, but I hear what you're saying too. You know.
yeah, I mean, he definitely had a lot of experiences that I have not had,
Yes.
and even then, I still don't have. But he was just, he had a lot of experience, and he was very talented. I remember his final production did really, really well. And I think,
I thought that too. I remember thinking that he had misses when he played by the rules, but when he didn't play by the rules of UCLA, he was very good. And I wished that almost like he was encouraged more, and we were encouraged more sometimes to do more, I want to say, unconventional plays and storytelling and things based in improvisation, because I liked a lot of that work of his, and I was not so strong, at least at that point. And then I ended up, now I do that stuff all the time,
Mhm.
so it was just interesting because he was very good at that stuff, and really kind of creating, I want to say, like a company sort of atmosphere. um
and he was charismatic, and he really, yeah, but go ahead.
No, I mean, that's it. I mean, I think, but to your point, I mean, I definitely felt similarly to you that we had like a really good camaraderie, and we could always talk, and like could always like, when we were getting beat up by whatever, I felt like we could always like kind of like regroup. And I feel like I had a great amount of trust for you
Mhm.
always. I felt like I always trusted you a lot.
I
Um,
appreciate that because I have trust issues as well.
Well, it's hard. It was a weird, it's like in one sense, like they don't put you together in a group and say like, now you guys get along. Now you guys get along, y'all.
Mhm.
It's like, are we competitive? Like, what is the dynamic when you're in such a small group? We're directing together. We're supposed to be critical of each other's work. Like, what's the, and it's like, and as you said, it was like, it wasn't like we were all, you know, like we became friends. And I think, I saw many different, like I didn't ever, to your point, I never really saw Tom's life. I saw many aspects of your life. I
Right.
knew how you lived. I mean,
In a cockroach ridden apartment. Yeah. Did
well,
you see cockroaches, by the way, when you were there?
I remember playing Grand Theft Auto in an apartment of yours in Koreatown, and going
Right.
to Tommy's in Koreatown, and and somebody talking. I still remember this, that there was a very famous porn star named Jennifer Flowers, I think, who one of your roommates was like date or worked at his fucking job at, like, I want to say BJ's, which is an appropriate name, or like fucking like like
Yeah, it was Matt Dittman.
yeah.
And if you, I think he's a few episodes back from our current episode.
Okay.
And yeah, he worked at BJ's restaurant in
Oh, I got it
Burbank.
right. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and it was it
Jennifer
was
White.
I think it was Christina Black.
Got it.
But
Okay.
you're just off on the color.
The last name color.
Yeah, and yes, he worked with the porn star that I probably had a DVD of specifically because he was working with her. So
Oh, I looked her up. I remember.
yeah, but
um,
he's funny. I know he didn't give a shit about that. He just
no,
didn't.
I mean, it was just like, I for some reason I remember that, and then I remember your turn into that world too, and I remember thinking
Now,
like,
did I tell you about that, or was
oh
that
yeah, yeah. Well, okay. So this is how I remember it happening. You
okay?
you know you were in it, and you were very. I remember Pirates, and I remember it was Pirates, right? That was the big money gig you got.
That was the first one, was Pirates, and then I
Right.
made
You
Pirates
got
2:
like a nice chunk
Stagnetti's
of change
Revenge.
off that, and then you started working. So what I remember is we went to some restaurant in like fucking Van Nuys, and we sat down, and I said, and you were like at the latter end of it. You were like on your way out, or had
Okay.
just gotten out.
Okay.
But I think you were questioning it all.
Okay.
I remember one comment you said to me was, I was filming backstage, or you were like, why? And you're just like, at a certain point, you were just so desensitized to it all. And you were talking about that side of things. And I remember it really, really clearly, because I remember thinking like, I'm sure you would become desensitized to it. Are you frozen? Oh, I don't know if there was a,
My heart's frozen. No, I
I remember this,
was.
but we had a meal, but part of it, I asked the question. I said, like, tell me everything. I had that kind of question because I was so curious.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
never knew anyone who worked in that world, so of course I wanted to know all. You know.
But didn't you live like, couldn't you look over your backyard fence and see
Oh, you
porn
remember
being,
that story? Well, that's
yeah.
true. That's a funny story. Yeah,
So you
yeah.
were
We had a
closer to it than
pornographer,
you.
but that doesn't mean I knew any. I mean, that doesn't mean anything. It was just like we had a pornographer who lived next door to us. I
Oh,
didn't, I
okay.
didn't, I didn't talk to the guy. I didn't. I just remember one time coming home from school and they put those big black shades up in the backyard, and then like all the men in the neighborhood were over at my house and they were all like looking over the fence and trying to get a look at what was going on. And that's about the extent of it. But no, I mean, I didn't know anything about the real how it works. And I remember you told me about, oh, I don't know, a very particular porn star. I'm trying to remember her name, but trying to get pregnant and how that was really, and I just remember thinking you had a lot of really interesting, weird little stories about that industry that I thought were really. That's what I remember, and I thought, wow, this opens up a whole new. Actually, you know what? You said that actually had a very powerful. I'll tell you what you said that stuck with me.
Mhm.
You said that the moment that when porn's when you're on a porn set and the moment somebody says action and people are actually having sex, there's like this weird reverent. There's still, it's still they're doing that, and there's like a reverence, or there's like that. It is still what you would think it is, even though it's like very, for lack of a better way of putting it, transactional or whatever. But I remember you describing that very succinctly, and I remember it stuck in my head like, oh, right, as like weird and dirty and corrupt and strange as this industry is, and as professional as it is, as I remember you telling me, I remember you describing that particular thing and thinking, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I was trying to say. I mean, I do remember feeling I felt like I should not be there. Like when they started having sex, I'm like, why am I here? Like this is like
This is
an
special.
act.
Like it's special. Like you're like looking in on something that you shouldn't be watching. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I felt like it's an odd thing to it's and watch it. It's very to be in the room and watching that. It's strange because it really looks animalistic, and it's not something that you get that sense when you're watching it on a screen.
Right.
It really seeing it live and being in the same room, and it's really it feels like I was like either I should be involved or I should not be here.
Right. I got you. Like your wife. Yes. Animal husbandry. you
Yeah,
know.
it felt very, yeah, very animalistic and carnal, and it felt like I should, and I mean I should not have been there. I mean it was not healthy for me in any way whatsoever, and I think everybody that I know that worked in it, even as an editor, they have issues, to this day. And so, I mean, as I said, I mean, I've said it many times on the podcast. It was a very fear-based decision because I was losing my eyesight, and you know, um, yeah, yeah, I did it, and it's I don't have it's not something I'm proud of, but it happened.
But I also think like, it's such a unique, in the book on your life, like that's an interesting chapter,
And it's
whether it
the
was
odd
good for
thing
you
is
or
it's the most. I mean, it was like Pirates was super popular. Like they would, I mean, colleges
not. The
had
biggest, yeah,
screenings of it, and it was
yeah.
on the news, and like,
I remember the big billboard of it over Sunset. I said, I remember saying, my friend wrote that. And people would be like, you're full of fucking shit. Every single person I told it to said, you are full of shit. I said, no, I'm not. I'm saying,
Max Massimo.
it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, and the odd thing is like that's my legacy in terms of widespread creative work that I've done. That's it is Pirates and Pirates 2.
Right. Well, I mean, you could do worse things than have like two of the most popular and highest grossing porn films of all times. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, I see what you're saying, but
You know,
so what happened after UCLA?
what happened after UCLA? After UCLA, so I I directed, I started directing. I did, a bunch of different little things, I probably remember W and the Gang of Seven. I don't know if you remember that one.
Oh God, I'm so sorry, man. That's another. I feel like I owe you just so many apologies. You cast me in that as Carl Rove, and I had to drop out because
I
I
don't even
was
remember that. That's funny. I don't even remember. That's wild.
really.
I don't remember that. Yep.
Yeah, that's so funny.
I think I was smoking a lot of weed at that time. I don't remember. I literally don't remember it.
That's so funny because I remember I auditioned for it, and I remember it was like in it was in Studio City, I think,
Yeah.
where the
Oh,
audition.
yeah.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
definitely in the Valley. It
It
was
was across
near
the,
like
across
I
the street
feel
from
like it
that
was near
clown liquor
Jerry's
store.
Deli.
What do you say?
I feel like it was near Jerry's Deli where it was where the at least the audition was, and on Ventura or something like that. And in any case, I may be misremembering, but and I remember auditioning, and I just remember getting so scared because I I after right when I graduated, I went through a transition in my eyesight, and I was like, fuck, that's why I got into porn in the first place, is because I was like, I am losing my eyesight much faster than I thought I was. And I got so scared, and I was like, I got to make money, and like I can't be doing a play and not making money. And like I got really scared, and I felt so bad. And I remember getting one of my friends, and I'm blanking on his name, Alan Rochelle.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah. And yeah, he was the one. Yeah, he played it. He was a lovely guy.
And I remember he like, but I feel like he was angry at me for something I did. I don't know in relation to that. Like I didn't do something properly but he,
I feel like I didn't do things properly during that. I don't remember what the issues were. I feel like I may have burned some bridges during that show, but I don't really remember why. Um, I probably because I don't know. I probably just was very inexperienced. And anyway, I did things like that. I directed stuff and, um, put up a bunch of little things here and there. And,
do you feel like Oliver Stone like took your piece
what do you mean?
because you
Oh,
did George W. Bush to play? Because you did do that before he made that movie.
true. It's true. No, but it is, I appreciate the sentiment. You
Because
know,
if it
I
wasn't
mean,
for the statute of limitations, I think you would have had a case.
yeah, fuck you, Oliver Stone. You owe me money. You heard it here first. Um, yeah, directed, was doing stuff. I ended up kind of feeling quite a bit burnout, actually, to tell you the truth. I was not sure if I was doing the right thing for myself. Financially, I thought I was in a weird place. And around that time, I met Elaine Hall, who was starting to do a musical. She wanted to do a musical with folks on the autism spectrum. And that's when I met her. And in like 2004 or 2006, something like that. Yeah, like 2006, somewhere in there. And it was the first version of the Miracle Project. And in that, I started working because I needed work too. I started working in the homes of folks on the autism spectrum, and I loved it. I loved working creatively with these folks, kids, teens, adults, and I loved that it was like it was like a series of creative challenges that were being projected at me every day,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought I was good at it too.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a big transition. It really was like I think I like this more. I think I like working in service in some way, and then I kind of stuck with it. And so we did that, and then the HBO movie Autism the Musical came out like the next year, which was kind of insane. Or the next, and or 2 years into that program, and that kind of blew up what we were doing. And because I was involved with it and I was very intimately, I mean, not intimately, that's not the right word, but like I was very, well, I'm
It's
trying to say,
the porn is crossing into everything. Go ahead.
I
Go
was
ahead.
very, but I mean, like I was very close to that work, to the work, and was a big part of it. I saw it as something that could help me then develop my own version of what I was seeing, and really offering, a really safe place for folks on the autism spectrum to create theater and to make stuff, and then I moved to New York City and I started doing that work, and then it just grew from there, and I just kind of stuck with that. I wasn't directing, I want to say, plays anymore. I wasn't particularly interested in it, which is really bizarre. I kind of
Mm.
just was like, I'm not doing that. I had other creative interests. I was still making music. I think I chose, like, for my creativity to just do music. Like that was what I was doing creatively in terms of my own artistry. And then I felt like the other side of me was doing artistry, but it was involved in service somehow, like really helping other people to have these experiences and helping them develop and grow. And it was a big transition for me, and it's really interesting. I mean, it doesn't even make really that much sense to me. Kind of felt like I was on the right path, but it also felt confusing and weird, and like, why am I doing this? I used to do this,
Mm.
but at this point it seems like it makes a lot of sense, because I've really grown with Actionplay, a really beautiful, supportive, incredible community, and I'm very proud of it. Um, and well, I can't talk about it yet, but there's a great opportunity that's coming up for me too, where they're going to start, that's focused on a very public thing that's focused on me and my work, and it's really exciting. It's really exciting to get some acknowledgement too. I've had some nice acknowledgement through the years, spoke at the UN, did things like that, and like really cool stuff. But it's a very special, cool community of just artists and folks with disabilities and folks on the spectrum who are just devoted to making interesting work. And then, through that, I also got into the advocacy side of things too, which I think is good, good conversation for us to have too, which is, for folks with disabilities, people who are blind, people who are deaf, people who have, any kind of physical disability, to really work with the casting industry. So the casting is happening representationally. And so we work with the Casting Society of America and have a partnership with them. And we're really working with casting directors to start, because that's where you get your foot in the door. And that's how you also get into the access needs too. So it's been a very interesting, bizarre kind of path, but that's kind of where I am now.
That's amazing. Had you ever thought of doing stand-up comedy?
Never.
Really?
Never.
You have a great sense of humor. Did you ever hear, you might have heard about this. So I did my first time I did stand-up comedy. I did it at the Derby. And so this
Vaguely
was,
remember it. I vaguely remember.
you didn't go.
No, I didn't go. I vaguely remember you telling me about it. Yeah, yeah. No, I
So
didn't.
what happened was, is I was coming off the high of 12th Night, and then I was in this little experimental piece, and I can't remember her name who directed it. I'm
Natalia?
really, huh?
Natalia?
No, it was an undergraduate, and it was I can't remember, it was a friend of Brooke Glykin's, and I'm just blanking on her name, but I played like a Russian bear. You may have.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
And
remember.
I was probably unstable in that production as well, but it worked. And then I was just on a high. I'm like, I'm going to just do anything. And Matt, my roommate, he was running a room at the Derby, and so I'm like, I'm going to do it. And I made the mistake. So I was really interested in dating Kate Colton.
Oh, sure. Did you date
Remember?
her?
No, I said I was interested in dating her.
Oh, well, yeah.
And so I invited her to my first stand up, which was a massive mistake.
Oh.
And I don't think she stayed for for it at all. I think
Oh,
she,
no.
yeah,
I mean,
it was like, I
that's
don't,
a sad
and
thing.
and she did not talk to me again, I don't think, after that. So it was pretty embarrassing. But it to be expected.
Honestly, listen, I appreciate you saying I'd be, but honest to God, I never thought about it. Never,
Mm.
ever, 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 ever. I know it's a great path even to, doing things you know, like Mikey Day or something, like a lot of people who were in our world, they did somehow segue into comedy. Um, I I like stand up too. It just never really appealed to me.
It's yeah, it's it takes a certain personality, I think, and a desire too, because it's painful.
You gotta want to do that.
Yeah.
I liked playing music on stage. I think stand up is not. Even talking about it makes me nervous, which is I'm like, ooh.
Yeah, I mean it's a very vulnerable place to be for sure as a performer. But so Actionplay, what are some of the current projects that you'd like to share about that?
So we have a show coming up that's opening in June. It's going to be going up on the website. It's called A Questionable Case. We shot it all, and via Zoom, but we pieced it all together. It's going to play like a film, but it's a full musical. We developed it mostly pre-stay at home. So we had a script and we had a lot of songs, but we've added to it too, and there's new songs and new things. But it's like a really cool ensemble piece about a detective who's in retirement. Him and his wife are trying to figure out their retirement, and it's about him basically going on the case of a lifetime in his last case, and he learned some things. And it's lovely. It's a really lovely, fun, light piece. I do a lot of the music so a lot of the music I also have written is with my music collaborator and the music director of Actionplay, Gabe Litt, and we co-write and work with the participants in our program and co-create a lot of the songs, and they're great. And I love working with him, and it's such a joy. And then I'm co-directing this piece with Brisa Aureli Munoz, who's an incredible director and kind of thought leader, Chicana thought leader, and she's really awesome too. So, I've been in this kind of interesting devised theater world, which is not anywhere where I would have thought I would have been, not
Right.
even in the slightest. But that's kind of where my career went in a weird way, and it's been a blast.
Well, it's amazing how life goes. I wouldn't have thought I would have ever ended up in the porn industry, and it's like that John Lennon quote: "Life is what happens when you're making other plans." You know.
That's right. That's right. That's a great quote. I like that quote too.
Um, but I usually ask this, and I apologize. I fucked up and I didn't mention this, so you can decline if you want. But I usually ask the question: is there a moment in your life where you felt that you loved beyond your fears?
Where I loved beyond my fears.
Yeah.
Hmm. Where I
I mean, it
loved.
doesn't have to be romantic. It could be, it could be any type of love, really.
I might be going through that right now.
Really?
No, I don't know. Definitely going through some heartbreak and stuff like that. Don't want to go into it too much, but um, yeah, I mean, I can relate to that quote currently. You're definitely getting a very vulnerable. Yeah, bro.
I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable. I,
No,
I
I'm not
just,
uncomfortable. I'm just saying, like, yeah, I've definitely been dealing with some of that, up and beyond my fears. If it's in a romantic love sort of situation, um, but in terms of my life, I think I also would relate it to just my experience with music too, where I think really I would have loved to, um, have the experience of my music or something exploding or something like that, and have the adulation or whatever. But I think it was really just the love of doing it that still propels me to do it, even though it never. And I've talked about this with a lot of people. I think if it did become like a total career for me, I mean, saying like I was just that's all I did. I mean, I've toured, but I never made my living as a touring musician or anything.
Mm,
But if that did happen, maybe I wouldn't have been, maybe I wouldn't enjoy it as much as I
mhm.
do. So I definitely could relate it to that. Where sometimes the output and like just the love of it was more than what I was necessarily getting back, but it's just the satisfaction of just keeping and creating and all that. So
Right.
take it in that
Right.
direction too.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being here. This is it's been a very therapeutic conversation.
Yeah, for
Um,
me too.
I got a lot off my chest, and the other let's get to the heart of really why we're having this interview. I'm actually looking for work. You mentioned the action play. Is it is it is it inclusive of all disabilities beyond the autism spectrum, or is
Well,
it
I mean, I would say our AIMS program is primarily folks on the autism spectrum and folks with developmental disabilities, but
Mm,
folks that volunteer and work with us are, any that come as you are. But in terms of the audition stuff that we do, and that kind of and the work that we do within the casting industry, that's definitely open and pushing to make sure that folks with all disabilities are represented. And it's the sort of thing where it's like if you wanted to do something about working with your disability and access related needs to something like that, that would be a great thing. I would love a workshop like that, specifically with for folks that are blind. I've done a lot more work with folks that are deaf, and not as much work with folks that are blind.
well,
But
I'm both.
strong
So
advocates in the community in that regard, but it's something that definitely would fit into, because basically we're always just trying to push back on the casting industry and say like, no, just keep these roles, like keep the door open and let the representational roles play. But then once these people pass through the door, then you hope you have more of like the Marley Matlins of the world who can play deaf parts and then play hearing parts too, play whatever.
yeah,
But
I
there's
don't
very few
think there
people
are
who
as
have
far,
that kind of access, and it's a shame. you
yeah.
know
I feel like I don't think there are that I'm aware of, you know, blind actors that are well known. Like, I mean, Al Pacino played, in Son of a Woman, but
yeah.
he, he wasn't blind. So I mean, what would it have been like if an actual someone that is blind had played that
Well, it would
role
have
of
been an
Colonel Frank
incredibly
Slade?
authentic experience, and I think that's the change. The authenticity. Obviously we play roles, and acting should be open to always, the playing of roles. I mean, that's what's fun. But the authenticity of an experience can really, as you said, like it can really change something and make it really unique and special in a just give it a whole different flavor if the role is cast representationally, and then it can have so much more nuance. um it's not to say that I'm just a purist in that regard. I don't think that that's the way it has to be, but I do think that there's enough actors who want those opportunities that it would be nice to see a lot more of it you know
Did
so
you are you familiar with Bill Burr?
yeah. Yeah.
What did you he had his that bit about I think it was Bryan Cranston's character.
Oh, it's fucked up. I mean, like, listen, I
Yeah,
don't push back on that sort of shit. I mean, I don't
right,
get into the fray of comedy and like shooting down comedians, but I don't
right.
like that sort of shit when it happens. I mean, but do I publicly start lashing it? It's just not where I know a lot of people who like to do that or who really believe that's something that they feel very strongly about. I don't know, with stand up and stuff like that, I go like, and this is just me,
Mhm.
I'm not saying I'm right. For me, I just feel like they're telling jokes, jokes. The whole Hannah Gadsby punching up, punching down. It's just like, I'm like, punch whatever fucking direction you want, really. I mean,
Hmm.
it's comedy. It's just like, that's how I feel though. And I'm
Right.
a white privileged male. So,
Yeah.
I get that I'm not the best person to be listening to on this subject. It's more of just a personal feeling. I know that that can cause people pain. And I know the platform can sometimes be large enough that it really actually puts a lot of shame onto people. But I also feel like if you in comedy, why are we taking it so fucking serious? It's fucking comedy. Just let it be, let it exist as humor, even if it's foul. You know,
Yeah.
there's a difference between Michael Richards going out and berating an audience and, you know, and being insane and not doing a fucking stand-up routine, and, you know, somebody making a crass joke that somebody's,
Right.
you know, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not my platform. I have no problem with people though that do want to push back on that publicly, because I think I think, you know, people need to be put into check. I mean, I think that too, but I don't know. I get into all sorts of arguments with people about Dave Chappelle and stuff like that, because I'm more on the side of like, who gives a fuck? Like, you're looking at the platform and I'm going like, yeah, but it's still fucking comedy. It's still jokes. It can be mean, you know? It's like he's playing a character. He's not running for fucking president, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's also the context and the intention, and I think Jerry Seinfeld said, if, funny is funny. I mean,
Right.
and Don Rickles, Jeff Ross, I mean, there's I mean, it it's a delicate balance, it's
It is a
that,
delicate balance. I don't really know what the line is. I always think of
yeah,
the Michael Richards thing, because that to me is like the crossing of the line, where it's just like,
yeah,
this guy got out on stage, had a breakdown. Everybody was like, what the fuck is going on?
yeah,
And it's not comedy, and
mm,
and it was a breakdown.
yeah,
And then you think about that in the context of somebody like fucking Latka, what Andy Kaufman.
yeah.
Um, you know, you go like, well, if that happened and there was even the slightest nuance of theatricality, I don't know. You
Yeah.
know, I don't know. I wonder. You know, I wonder what that would feel like. Andy Kaufman skirted that line, and there have been plenty of comedians that do the line between real and fake,
Mhm.
or theatrical. And, you know, if it gets dicey and offensive, I don't know. I don't know. I feel that I might want to see that. But I
I
don't
think
feel it would come across like Mike Richards did, where it
I
was
think the thing is, what comedy does when it's done right, and no matter what the joke is, it brings people together,
that's correct.
you know.
Yep.
And I think that's the key, is that it doesn't divide people. It doesn't it brings people together in laughter, and that's the important thing.
But what do you think of like the Chappelle, all the trans jokes and stuff like that? You think this guy should be just put into? I mean, he is being put into check. So the reality is that there's enough people that don't like it that push back on him, and I think that that's okay too. Um, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mike Birbiglia says that, comedy is going to offend somebody.
Yes.
Somebody's
That's
going to be
correct.
by every joke. So I mean, it really depends on, it's hard for us to say we're not trans, right? So
Exact.
it's hard.
That's the point.
Yeah.
And in terms of the offense, but I saw the, you know, the Hannah Gatsby piece, and I know she's saying, they're saying, well, I'm a comedian too, and don't take this as like a thesis, but that's how the thing felt to me, the original one. And I remember thinking like, she's making this thesis that comedy does this. Yes, it does.
Right.
Like, I'm just like, yeah, you know, like what, we should change all comedy, that like suddenly, you know, if we're punching down, like that's all bad. It's like, no, it's part of comedy. You know, it's been happening for the thousands of years.
Yeah.
What, we have to question that suddenly because we're in this like era of like if it was such great respect, we would actually do more for people. when we would stop worrying about who's getting punched down at a fucking stand-up show. Let's
Mhm.
actually support people. Let's actually get people fucking roles that deserve roles in shows. Let's do fucking, you know, more for fucking immigrants and fucking black people and fucking disabled people in this country. That's what needs to happen.
Yeah.
Who gives a fuck about what's, I mean, like literally, if you see them as two of the same thing, you're fucking wrong. One is about actions and the other is about entertainment.
Yeah.
You know, like I just don't see it as they don't parallel to me. You know, I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of people who don't agree with that, but I'm happy to have the conversation.
Well, I'm happy that we've had this conversation. I'm so grateful that we reconnected. And how can those that are listening and watching support Actionplay?
So you can go on the website, actionplay.org. You can make a donation. There's a contribution page that always really helps us and helps our teaching artists and helps our program. So that's always a lovely way to support. You can tune into our shows. We have shows coming up. And, you know, I'm a big fan of just like helping our cause. You know, if we have something going on social media, sharing it with somebody. If you see something cool that we put out, a cool piece of content, that's a great way to show support too. Just like saying like, hey, this is cool shit, you know, like, you know, so yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. It was a honor and a pleasure to have you. And I miss you, man.
Where are you living in the world? Are you not allowed to disclose that?
No. I live in Northern California. I live in Nevada County, Nevada City, which is basically an hour and I think 20 minutes, maybe northeast of Sacramento.
Cool. And you're in a happy relationship. I can see that. And
yeah, I'm married. I have a beautiful wife and a stepson, and life is. I mean, I'm really grateful for the things that I have. This is a very. We're all dealing with the pandemic and everything that comes with that, and I'm fortunate in that respect. I'm employed and able to do this podcast, which keeps me sane. And I'm grateful for it.
That's awesome, man. That's beautiful. Well, I agree. Good to connect. I'm glad we connected too. And I hope you make it out to New York City, or I plan on being out in California at some point this year.
Yeah. Please keep me updated. And I definitely would love to visit as well. I haven't been there since in Cal Arts, when we had to do our acting showcase, we did one in LA and one in New York.
Yeah.
And that was right before 9/11. Oh, wow. So, I mean, I experienced New York and saw the World Trade Centers. And then a few months later, that happened. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Well, you can always come over and I will pour you a large cup of cold gin.
All right. That sounds good. I haven't, truthfully, I haven't drank. I don't know what it is about drinking, man, but I drank a lot when I was in Mexico. I drank mezcal, and that was my drink to get me through the hot nights. And I don't know what it is. Like the last time I had a drink that I remember was New Year's of 2019, I think.
Well,
and I'm more of a weed guy now. I really that keeps me stable, and I enjoy that.
Well, we just legalized it in New York, so you can walk outside and puff a fat doob like on the street, and you just have to be 10 feet away from a building, which means you're probably standing in the middle of the street, but that doesn't matter. I'll help you out there.
Yeah. I mean, if you could guide me a little bit so I don't get run over.
I'll fucking punch cars.
All right, man. Listen, it was great to connect with you, and let's do this again. And until then, please stay healthy and safe.
You too, dude. So good to hear from you.
Thank you. And now we're gonna have our awkward ending.
Oh, what do we do?
Hold on. We don't have to do anything. I just have to stop the recording. So hold on one second. Oh, no, that didn't work.